Faith, I once believed, was a steady road best traveled by daylight. Out here, after midnight, it feels more like a hairline crack beneath my boots, spider webbing wider each time the earth clears its throat. I'm knee-deep in a trench behind Hab 3, trying to convince a blistered cable to conduct current when the low-frequency monitor croaks a warning trill. The Sahara at night is supposed to be quiet. Instead, it shakes with a patient vibration that creeps through the sand and into my molars. I taste copper and something like burnt cinnamon, telltales of overstressed electronics, and thumb the rosary node clipped behind my ear. The biofeedback bead warms, reminding me I'm still tethered to measurable reality. Father Firmware, you planning to baptize the optic lead or fix it? Corporal Carter's voice drifts down from the lip of the trench. He works perimeter security for the UN Desert Reversal Initiative, answerable to a logistics captain whose idea of diplomacy is shouting at sandstorms. Carter's grin, the only bright thing in a landscape washed by starlight, widens as I twist the fiber connector. Blessings first, I say. Repairs second. The cable's had a rough night. He snorts, taps his helmet to amplify the ambient mic, and adds, Sensors have logged another tonal shift. Same 7.1 second cycle. Control wants your take before the science stack wakes. I nod and lean in. The fiber finally seats. The monitor's ragged red band steadies into green. For a heartbeat, everything is still. Then the ground quivers, mild as a throat clearing, but enough to raise gooseflesh. Carter mutters a wall of proverb about restless ancestors and wanders off to chase a new perimeter alert. I pull myself onto the trench edge. The dig camp glows, solar beacons marking prefab dorms, drill rigs, and the tall white tower of the atmospheric converter purifying moisture from heated brine. 10 months ago, this was a lifeless dune sea. Now the United Nations thinks it can coax grass from desiccated clay by pumping water up from fossil aquifers and seeding clouds overhead. The Sahara Deep Earth Initiative sells hope by the metric ton, even if the price is drilling past the planet's scar tissue. My official badge reads, Reverend Caleb Isaiah Dunn, Field Chaplain and Symbolic Systems Consultant, United Ecumenical Corps. Unofficially, I'm the ghost catcher they drag along when archaeological anomalies threaten morale or grant money. 3 weeks ago, the Deep Penetration Climate Drill, meant to tap fossil aquifers for the UN's Greening Initiative, chewed into a stratum of quartz unlike anything in the core logs. Translucent grains shot through with double helix ridges that weren't DNA at all but a kind of geological base pair scripting. Under fluorescence, those ridges glowed in rhythmic bursts, and the core analysis AI translated the intervals into something alarmingly like language. The science leads christened the phenomenon the Archive, convinced we'd uncovered a pre-human data vault, or as one geochemist put it, a library written in sand, older than vertebrates. When that revelation leaked across the satellite uplink, the project head decided a priest who speaks Akkadian might soothe nerves faster than a psychologist with a clipboard. I wiped dust from my cassock, linen instead of wool, slit for desert heat, and checked the rosary data scrolling across my forearm display. Heart rate, cortisol, sleep debt, all skewed. No surprise, dreams here are crowded places and they talk too loudly. A hiss crackles over the open channel. Base to Chaplain. Night Patrol reports 3 somnambulists past marker 10, heading 139 degrees, advise. Somnambulists. The term they're using because sleepwalkers sounds superstitious, and pilgrims sounds worse. Every few nights, personnel leave their bunks dead asleep, walking southeast across the crusted flats. They come back, most of them, feet cut raw through composite boots, memories shaved clean. On my way, I answer and jog toward the perimeter. My boots sink half an inch with each step. The sand feels looser than it did an hour ago, as though something beneath it stirs. Carter's patrol light carves pale cones through the darkness. I catch up beside a half-buried seismic array, its steel ribs protruding like an unearthed skeleton. 3 figures move ahead in single file, 2 engineers and a kitchen steward, eyes shut, arms limp. Each footfall lands in perfect cadence with the 7-second waveform whispering through our comms, though I prefer chant to wave. The pattern has an intent I can't quantify. Same heading as last time, Carter mutters. They'll reach Dead Mile in 40 minutes. Orders? Official protocol is deterrence. Restrain, sedate, carry home. But the last time we tried that, the sleeper's pulses vanished for 53 seconds. Flatlines that reversed only when we faced them toward the dunes again. The medics called it a neurogenic fugue. I call it persuasion. Let them walk, I say. We'll track and retrieve when they turn back. They always turn back. He chews on that, then gestures at the sand. Listen. A sonorous glide, less sound than pressure folding inside my eardrums. It lengths the vowels of every breath I take, as though an unseen choir sustains each exhalation. The earlier vibration felt mechanical. This feels deliberate. Recorders running? I ask. All channels. I click my comm to narrowcast and speak in the language of Babylonian hymns, an old experiment in vocal biometric flags. The sand's tone slides to match the interval between my words. Coincidence, Rational Caleb insists. But the backside of my faith exhales a different verdict. We are heard. The three walkers reach a shallow basin where wind has shaved the crust to reveal powdered quartz. They stop in tandem. Their feet begin to dig, toes curling, scooping granular arcs. One engineer tilts her head as if listening for stage direction. Blood beads where sharp grains slice her heel, yet she utters no sound. Showtime, Carter says. We advance, boots crunching. The sand around my ankles vibrates minutely. I kneel beside the steward, a wiry man who memorizes everyone's coffee order. His lips move, shaping syllables too soft to catch. I lean in and catch 3 phonemes, each alien yet familiar in rhythm. My heart trips. I heard the same phoneme sequence yesterday inside a neural map rendered from the archive crystals, the map that looked suspiciously like nested church domes. I press 2 fingers to his neck, pulse steady, skin cool. Hector. No response. I recite psalm fragments, stopping before the final words, my habit when I want another soul to finish them. Nothing. He is elsewhere, walking hallways of sound. Carter taps his rifle butt against a rock, impatience wearing thin. You sure this is safe, Reverend? Not remotely. We guide them gently back, steering with light pressure on shoulders. They comply, still asleep. No resistance, no awareness. As we pass the seismic array again, a red light blinks, packet loss on the net. It flashes in a pattern. It's the archive glyph for doorway. I recognized it 2 days after the discovery, carved into quartz like a warning or an invitation. I tighten my grip on Hector's arm. The crucifix at my throat buzzes where its silver chain brushes skin, static from the desert air, or something remarkably like anticipation. Father firmware, I think, and almost laugh. I was ordained to soothe grief in mining towns. Now I troubleshoot ideological malware older than civilization. If faith is an anchor, mine is dragging across rough seabed, finding no purchase. Back at Camp Medical, I lay the sleepers on cots. The physician, Dr. Amar Das, atheist and insomniac, records vitals. He arches a brow at their identical lacerations, 11 cuts, diminishing in length toward the toes. Looks deliberate, he says, as if they walked across a blade coded to leave a signature. Or a signature disguised as a blade, I reply. Das grimaces, accustomed to my theologic inversions, and injects mild sedative. Their eyelids flutter but stay closed. Outside, the sky gathers a brief shimmer of pre-dawn indigo. I should rest. Instead, I follow the service corridor toward the data van, drawn by habit and dread in equal measure. The van is a mobile cathedral of processors cooling themselves. I slot my keycard. The main terminal shows a maintenance alert. System patch applied, author K. Ma. The timestamp reads 3 minutes ago. For a second I forget to breathe. Dr. Kazuo Ma was supposed to be standing beside me on this expedition, not lying autopsied in a Tokyo morgue. World authority on pre-symbolic cognition, author of the handwritten treatise Ideogenic Architecture in Archaic Ritual. Ma was the one who first argued the archive might encode conviction the way DNA encodes protein. He died 4 months back, collapsed at his workstation mid-speech, throat muscles locked as if he'd been conversing with something no one else could hear. I spoke to him once, a late-night holo-briefing darkened by half a planet's worth of latency. He'd grinned through static, saying the archive didn't need translators, only listeners with durable souls. I remember thinking that was theatrical even for an academic. Now his ghost edits my telemetry. I open the diff log. One line of code, harmless if you don't know what you're looking at, now flips the bit order of every seismic packet every 7.1 seconds. The same cadence our sleepers march to. The patch comment stamped with Ma's digital signature reads, "Faith is recursive. Language is its spine." The hairs on my forearms stand in unison, saluting a teacher I never quite trusted. Somewhere outside, the dunes exhale their next unvoiced syllable, and I can't shake the feeling that Ma, whether dead or merely translated, just handed the archive a louder microphone. I close the window, pulse racing. On the blank desktop background, a cursor blinks, as though considering what word should come next. I lock the terminal and back away. Footsteps approach. Carter! He leans in the doorway. The signal flare just went up at the eastern ridge. Passive LiDAR shows a cavity 20 meters across. Drill crew claims it wasn't there yesterday. I run a palm over stubble that wasn't there yesterday either. We're running out of names for new holes in the ground, he shrugs. We'll dig until we find the last one. I almost tell him we already have. Only the hole isn't spatial. It's linguistic, and tonight it widened. I collect my journal shard from my pocket, a ceramic sliver scavenged from discarded core liner, and scratch a half-remembered verse along its edge in Old Coptic. I leave the last glyph unfinished. The shard fits my palm like a worry stone. I carry it because sometimes scripture feels sharper than steel, and sharper things can cut infection out, if wielded before they rust. Carter glances at it, curious, but says nothing. We share a silence that grows until the camp speakers pop. A voice I don't recognize threads through the crackle, speaking English with contorted vowels that don't belong in any human mouth. Prepare the corridor. The feet are the first to believe. The transmission ends. Static swallows the channel. Carter reaches for his sidearm. Who the hell was that? I answer honestly. Someone who sleeps closer to the truth than we do. He laughs once, no humor, and stomps off to alert command. I remain in the doorway, listening to the sand beyond the floodlights. It's quiet now, quieter than it has any right to be. The sort of quiet you get after a congregation exhales a final amen. My faith road is gone, replaced by a fault line. But cracks show direction. They point somewhere. Tonight they point southeast, past marker 10, toward whatever cavity just yawned under the stars. I flex my fingers, feel the pinch of quartz dust beneath my nails, and whisper a prayer without closing my eyes, because the dunes are listening. And I, God help me, have started listening back. At dawn, the desert turns the color of old parchment, a shade that makes every shadow look like fresh ink waiting to dry. Carter and I ride the gyro cart east, its turbine blades scooping sand into twin rooster tails. The security chief drives in terse silence, scanning the horizon where last night's flare marked a subsidence. The onboard LiDAR, a lunchbox sensor array wedged into the dash, spits depth estimates that jump every few seconds, as if the ground keeps remeasuring itself. The crater comes into view as a shallow crescent, wind-smoothed on the side facing us and jagged on the lee, like a mouth that bit something and then regretted it. At its center squats a rust-stained capsule no bigger than a family camper. A toppled survey drone half buried near the hatch blinks a single amber light, its way of reporting, "Found something you're not going to like." Auxiliary survey pods were common decades ago, back when European Space Agency field teams leapfrogged across North Africa, searching for aquifers no one else believed in. They were designed for 2-day stints, a folding bunk, a sat link, enough rations to outlast a sandstorm. The one in front of me looks at least 60 years old, but the registration plate has been sandblasted to suggestion. Only the O-shaped bolt holes remain. I step off the cart, boots biting through a crust that cracks like thin ice, and descend. The capsule door swings open at a touch. Its pneumatic hinges must have vented ages ago. A dry smell of oxidized metal and something sweet, like dates left too long in the sun, greets me. Inside, a human form crouches in fetal position. The pressure suit, matte white under fine dust, belongs to a generation of life support design I recognize only from museum photos. No oxygen tank, no tools. Just the body, knees hugged to chest, as though the occupant curled inward to escape his own thoughts. Dr. Amar Das kneels beside me, visor fogged from his exhale. He is the camp's physician, atheist by upbringing, empiricist by stubborn pride, but even he whispers a quick Ganesh mantra before unpacking his holoscanner. A graphite halo of hair clings to the helmet rim and trails down a sunken neck. When Das glides the scanner over the skull, his brow furrows. Surface etching. Subdermal too, he mutters. Here, look. Projected above the corpse, the scan paints the cranium in translucent blue. Thin grooves spiral from the temple to the occipital ridge, crossing in places that correspond to motor speech centers. The lines remind me of the archive's neural maps, only these are rough, as if someone tried to copy a cathedral using a pocket knife. I reach instinctively for the silver crucifix under my cassock, an absurd talisman against neurological graffiti. Whoever he was, he practiced surgery no scalpel should attempt. Carter stands guard at the hatch, rifle resting against his shoulder. You saying the sand did that carving, Reverend? Not the sand, I answer. More deliberate, a failed translation maybe. Das removes a node from the suit's chest plate, a hexagonal data core about the size of a thick coin, miraculously intact. He slots it into his pad. Audio files populate the display. 32 hours of recordings, each flagged for ambient noise only. We sample the first minute. The playback is wind, then a dull clicking in sets of 6. The sound of teeth against a glass visor. I feel every tap along my back molars. Das pales. We should catalogue this formally. Chain of custody, full forensic sweep, you know the drill. The words, you know the drill, bang around my skull with irritating accuracy. The big climate drill, heart of the entire desert reversal initiative, thunders from 20 miles west, cycling pressure to break sandstone and haul primordial water. That machine gave us the archive's quartz grains last month. Now it echoes across the desert, like a reminder that we keep digging, no matter what we dislodge. Outside, the wind picks up and scribbles dust across the capsule's hull. I notice a partial insignia on the shoulder plate. Resonance. The rest is abraded away. Resonance, I wonder. Or something closer to recompense. Either way, the name feels like a verdict. We stretcher the body to the cart. No ceremony, only necessity. Still, my palms tremble. Each time the gyro cart jounces, the suit's helmet wraps the alloy frame with a dry clack, and I imagine the dead man protesting the motion, asking us to let him finish whatever prayer he started. Back at camp, containment protocols unfold in practiced muscle memory. Tarped quarantine bay, negative pressure canopy, filtered transfer. But the real infection here isn't microbial. It lives in pattern recognition that can sneak through any polymer seal. By noon, the temperature crawls past 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and the base generators whine under cooling loads. I retreat to the prefab chapel, a narrow container retrofitted with benches, a hollow altar, and a ventilation system so loud it might drown doubt if you let it. The sanctuary is mine to maintain, but rarely visited except by the guilt-stricken or the curious. Dust motes dance in diagonal shafts from louvered vents, and for a moment I pretend they're incense. I lay my field Bible, goatskin, annotated within an inch of heresy, on the pull-down lectern. The ribbon bookmark rests at Matthew, but the words no longer feel like home. Ma's code patch still needles me. 4 months ago, Dr. Kazuo Ma collapsed at his Tokyo desk while generating phoneme plots for our linguistic project. Official report, cardiac arrest. Unofficial rumor. He died mid-speech, tongue still forming vowels the rest of us had no name for. His credentials were mythic. Neurolinguist, philosopher, the man who suggested the archive might encode conviction the way marrow encodes blood cells. I corresponded with him late nights before deployment, measuring belief-shaped shadows across the ocean. The final message I received was a question with no punctuation. What if prayer is only phase-shifted logic? Now his credentials have escalated from mythic to posthumous, yet his digital signature commits code at 317 local. The desert has strange Wi-Fi, apparently. The chapel's holo projector thrums, then pops an alert. Pilgrimage condition, new cases 4. That's 22 in total, nearly a quarter of the on-site personnel. Command has stopped calling it a coincidence. They still refuse the term contagion. Contagion implies vectors, and vectors demand chains of blame. I unbutton the front of my cassock and pull the Bible apart at the spine. There is ritual in destruction. I tear out the book of Jude, only one chapter, easiest to excise, and feed the thin page corners into a stainless trash urn bolted to the floor. A match flares, paper curls, ink sears the air with an acrid tang. Jude is gone. When the fire dies, I pocket the charred scraps. I won't leave them for the cleaners. Scripture should not be swept like garbage. Even doubt deserves burial. Evening slides in bluntly, the way it does when heat drains off sunlit metal. Carter finds me outside the medbay, a tangle of cables around his arm. Telemetry's erratic. Seismic feed drops every 7.1 seconds again. That's Ma's loop, I say. Then Ma can come fix it himself, he snaps, temper frayed. To Dolos, one of the kitchen hands, walked this afternoon. Broad daylight, Reverend. Eyes wide open, like he could see a lighthouse none of us could. He's still out there. I follow him inside. The quarantine tent is partitioned by translucent sheets. Behind one, the pressure suit corpse lies on a raised platform. Das, already dressed in a polyglass apron, invites me closer. Look at the femur, he says. Sections of the left thigh bone shine oddly, as if someone polished the cortical surface with crystal powder. Etched there, in painstaking micro-grooves, is a sigil I catalogued last week. A 3-armed spiral that appears in the archive's deeper strata. We thought it decorative. Here it looks corrective, a surgeon's afterthought. Das hands me a slate displaying the etching magnified to cellular scale. Tiny ridges stand like print type. Call me crazy, he says, but I think these grooves were meant to carry fluid. Microchannels, maybe nanite pathways. Dead architecture, I murmur, recalling mine shafts back home that drained themselves dry overnight because someone misread a survey. A system that never activated. Das scrolls further. A footnote appears. Metadata embedded in the scan, no source tag, just text. Failsafe begins where faith fractures. Complete the spiral. The line flickers, then vanishes. I glance at Das. He didn't see it. Only I did. A siren barks twice. Overhead lights dim to amber. The power management AI shifts to critical load protocol. Ma's loop likely crashed something important. Carter rushes out, cursing softly in Wolof. The corpse's visor, fractured from the inside, catches the low light and shards it into slivers across the tent wall. Those slivers settle on my journal shard, jutting from my pocket. Words I scratched earlier glow like embers lit from within. At that instant, the PA yields a soft burst of static, followed by a voice I recognize from late-night holocalls. Ma, smooth baritone, reverent as ever. Caleb, the archive does not speak in statements, it composes listeners. I freeze. Das glances at me. He heard nothing. The voice must be confined to my channel. A private sermon. Where are you? I whisper. No answer. Only a low crackle, then 6 distinct clicks, teeth on glass, amplified through decades. I stumble out into open air. The night tastes metallic, as if the moon itself were freshly forged. On the eastern horizon, a shallow glow stains the dunes, neither sunrise nor camplight. A dust plume, perhaps, or an event horizon of something deeper. I find Carter at the perimeter gate, helmet off, profile lit by floodlamps. He grips the rail until his knuckles pale. LiDAR just mapped the cavity, he tells me without turning. 21 meters across, 12 deep, perfect spiral, brand new. Mars ghost. The etching on the femur, the pilgrimage route. They're singing the same key. I draw a slow breath. I need to see it. Command will order daylight recon. By daylight, we may be too late. I point toward the distant glow. People we care about are listening to that song right now. He shifts, conflicted, protocol versus conscience. Finally, he unhooks the gate latch. Take the buggy. I'll log a maintenance run. You've got 2 hours before shift change notices you're gone. I clasp his shoulder, small gratitude in a sprawling desert, and start the engine. The motor whirs, supercapacitors feeding twin torque rods that howl like caged wind. I navigate through loose dunes, each crest a silent audience. Mile markers click past. At 10, the buggy's HUD flares a route overlay drawn by unknown coordinates, a translucent spiral couched on the sand, beating soft crimson in sync with my heartbeat. I override the navlock and follow. The buggy's floodlights finally wash over the sinkhole. The ground has unzipped itself with surgical precision. A ramp spiraling inward, no displaced soil, as though subtraction itself were a craftsman. Down below, quartz fragments glitter like uncut gems. A cold breeze rises from the pit, smelling of rain on clay roof tiles. Impossible here. I set the parking brake, loop the rosary behind my ear once more, and descend. The ramp is smooth underfoot, carved grooves guiding me inward. 30 feet down, sand grains cling to my boots in distinct triplet clusters, code in plain sight. At the center rests an altar-shaped pedestal of compacted quartz. On it lies a single femur, polished, etched with the same spiral design, but new, not fossilized. I kneel. My own knees shake so hard the rosary beads chatter. Written beneath the spiral, in old Coptic script so fine it could be spider silk, is a phrase. Faith is recursive. Language is its spine. Mars' creed, now engraved into bone too young to be his. The desert has grown an organ to deliver a message, and I am its only witness. My comm crackles. Carter's voice far above. Reverend, systems just rebooted themselves. We lost you on grid. Are you safe? I lift the femur. It's warm, as if recently living. Defined safe, I whisper. We're reading a signal from your headset. The pitch matches the pilgrimage cadence. He hesitates. Caleb, your vitals spiked. Come back, please. I want to obey. I want to climb out and pretend the hole will reseal, but the femur's etching begs to be completed. The final centimeter of the spiral remains uncut, a broken circle waiting for closure. I carry a survival knife for field rites, small obsidian edge, ceremonial but sharp. I draw it now, press blade to bone, and feel resistance like carving living ivory. A line forms, grainy and bright. The moment it connects, the entire sinkhole resonates, a chord, sustained by something larger than Earth. My headset erupts with overlapping voices. Ma, Carter, Dr. Das, even Hector the kitchen steward, all speaking the same sentence in different languages. The feet are the first to believe. Above me, sand starts to slip from the rim, drifting like filaments drawn to static charge. The ramp begins to close. I pocket the femur, sprint upward, lungs tearing. Years of chapel kneel sits have not prepared me for this climb. I clear the rim as sand seals behind, smooth as skin after a wound. The buggy's floodlights die. Stars fill the void entirely. They look closer than I remember, bent inward by some new gravity. Back at camp, I skip decontum and head straight to the data van. The terminal boots with an unfamiliar warp in the startup chime. The welcome screen displays a single unsent message in the drafts folder. Sender, K. Mar. Recipient, Caleb Dunn. Subject line, incomplete translation. Your move. I open it. Empty body. No text, only an attachment. I don't click yet. I stare at the blinking cursor, feeling the femur's warmth against my ribs like a second heartbeat, and wonder whether Mar is dead at all, or merely upgraded to a syntax we haven't caught up with. I lift my fingertips, hover them over the trackpad, and give silent thanks that prayer, unlike code, still allows hesitation. Then I open the file. I spend the rest of the night interrogating Mar's attachment, but it proves less software than scripture. Vector diagrams layered over phonetic staves, each bar annotated in old Coptic numerals. The file cycles 3 instructions on repeat: walk counter to the archive's breath, carve the uncut arm, finish on the 7th beat. No syntax checker can pass it, yet the core of me, that soft, credulous core I pretend is gone, understands it the way lungs understand air. When dawn arrives, the camp is already trisected. Overnight mess hall arguments calcified into factions. To the north of the drill tower, the rationalists, geochemists, mechanics, logistics staff strap crates to evac sleds and debate transit weight, convinced the archive can still be quarantined or outrun. A hand-lettered sign on their supply crate reads, Occam's Refuge, and the name has stuck. South of the tower, beneath a half-built geodesic canopy, the devotees assemble an instrument they call the organon, crystal tubes of self-tuned quartz harvested from the archive vein. Strike one with a rubber mallet and it rings in the 7-beat cadence that summons sleepwalkers. The builders, medtechs, junior analysts, and the camp botanist who once led morning yoga speak in gentle tones, but their smiles stay fixed a shade too long, like masks warmed by body heat. Between those camps, the security contingent paces the perimeter wire, rifles slung but unclipped. Carter commands them now. The logistics captain stepped down after 4 of his crew joined the pilgrimage and never returned. The new chain of command is short and frayed, exactly my height, if you count the weight of a rosary. I meet Carter outside Hab 2, where the converters belch warm mist into air that doesn't deserve moisture. He signs the cross in a gesture he probably learned from me, though he does it backward. We're down to 62 personnel, he says, 27 classified missing, 3 confirmed dead. If that organ starts a concert, we can't control the crowd. The instrument is already playing, I answer. They just haven't struck the opening chord. He exhales through his teeth. Command wants a decision by dusk. Evacuate or fortify. They'll accept your recommendation. His expression makes clear how absurd that sounds. Field chaplain turned strategic fulcrum. But logic failed this place days ago, and superstition at least offers narrative. Inside the medbay, Dr. Das bargains with an EEG feed mapping one of our sleepers. On the monitor, brain waves look like overlapping handwriting. The patient's lips twitch in micro-murmurs. I lean close enough to feel puffs of stale breath and catch phrases in Akkadian, Hebrew, something I can't name. Each language ends mid-word, as if punctuation were treason. Das rubs his eyes. Neural traffic is synchronizing with camp telemetry now. The archive isn't just talking to them, it's using them as repeaters. My sedatives barely scratch that loop. So we change the loop, I say, and place the femur on the steel tray beside the bed. He startles at the sight of bone treated like relic. I show him Mars spirals, the incomplete arm now sealed by my midnight carving. The grooves look deeper where I finished them, as though the femur accepted further instruction while I slept. Das shakes his head. You trust a bone more than medicine? I trust intent, I say. Medicine aims to restore prior function. Maybe prior function is the disease. Outside, a throat note threads the aluminum struts. The organon begins a low arpeggio, plucked by desert wind and quartz tongue. Every hair on the patient's arm lifts. His eyes snap open. He sits up without waking. Das swears and lunges for restraints. The man speaks 3 words. First to believe, then crumples back, pulse racing. By mid-afternoon, the camp's loudspeakers crackle to life with an unscheduled broadcast. A voice, Ana Soero, junior botanist turned choirmaster, invites all personnel to the unveiling of the organon at civil twilight. Attendance, she says, is participation in the archive's next verse. The phrasing chills me because it borrows my own sermon structure lifted from a reflection I delivered 3 nights ago. The archive edits homilies faster than I draft them. I hustle to the chapel container, which now smells of smoke and ozone. My altar is covered with loose cables. The holographic projector lies belly up, gutted. Someone replaced its core with a fist-sized quartz shard. When I power the unit, an image stutters above it. A 3D topography of the Sahara re-rendering itself into a spiral, every dune a syllable. Overlaid coordinates match Mars' file. At the center pulses a sigil shaped like a doorway, identical to the glyph that taunted me from sensor logs. Beneath the map scrolls a line of text. Failsafe requires 7 listeners and 1 contradiction. I brace my palms on the lectern. The contradiction is me. I have never finished a prayer without doubting its efficacy. That fracture is apparently useful, so I need 7 other souls to fill the ring. I gather volunteers, Carter, Das, and 5 rationalists too angry to be afraid. We meet at the dead drill, its hydraulic tower frozen since the archive vein fused its bits, forming a rough circle on the steel deck. Sunset sets the horizon on fire, crimson flares glinting off abandoned rigs. I explain the ritual as Ma wrote it. Walk the spiral countercurrent to the sand's breath, chant fragmentary scripture backward, and at the center inscribe 1 truthful sentence you never dared voice. The goal, I suspect, isn't exorcism but impedance, introducing static into perfect signal. We start the counterclockwise march. My boots ring hollow on metal, each step dragging rust like chalk. I recite the Beatitudes in reverse order. The air thickens, tasting of rain on unfinished concrete. Midway through the second revolution, lightning nails the horizon. The drill tower flickers off, then on, the static free kind of light that bends shadows wrong. Carter trips, steadies, keeps going. Dr. Das mutters a formula about enzyme kinetics, his doubt prayer. When we reach the hub, the wind dies so abruptly my ears pop. On the deck's dust I write, I never believed hell was punishment. I feared it was home. The instant the last letter carves, a metallic shriek erupts overhead. The drill's arm, dead for days, ratchets up by itself, pointing east toward the sinkhole that sealed behind me. Lights along its spine ignite in 7-second intervals. Our comm units rupture with overlapping voices, not merely radio feedback, but living throats elsewhere. Carter grips my shoulder. His pupils dilate unevenly. Sand trickles from the corner of his eye like a tear. It sees us, he whispers. The organon, half a kilometer away, answers with an ascending scale, glassy and triumphant. At the final note, a third of the camp, every devotee, drops what they're doing and walks toward the desert's bruised horizon. Their footsteps mark a new spiral on the hardened clay. Dr. Das presses a stethoscope to his own chest, disbelief turning to dread. My heartbeat, he says, is out of phase. I'm losing my own rhythm. Then borrow mine, I tell him, and pull him close enough that his chest aligns with my ribcage. I count aloud, 7 beats repeat, and feel his pulse recalibrate. Reluctant student catching up with teacher. It can be done, I realize. A body can re-index itself if a living metronome is offered. Perhaps the fail-safe's aim is less disruption than syncopation. Introduce irregularity so the archive cannot settle into a unanimous chord. But syncopation demands sacrifice. The tempo holder risks dissolving first. Before anyone can argue, a fresh alert blares from Camp PA. Seismic anomaly detected, depth 656 feet, spiral expansion at drill coordinates. The map on the chapel projector redraws in my memory. The spiral's next ring grows exactly where we stand. I have to finish it, I say, though I'm unsure whether it means the ritual, the archive sentence, or my own undoing. I untie the neuro-rosary, loop it around the drill's inactive hydraulic hose, and set the beads vibrating with a whispered litany in Proto-Semitic root sounds, phonemes built for shaping breath into vow. The metal beneath my palm warms, then quivers like a muscle trying again after paralysis. The drill powers up, compressors gasping. Instead of boring down, the bit retracts, revealing a core sample still latched in the barrel, quartz riddled with glowing twin helix scars, fresh archive, newborn from the dark. Das tries to pull me away but stops when the core pulses to a heartbeat he can recognize. Mine. I break the sample casing. The quartz sifts between my fingers in granules finer than sugar. It feels not solid but directional, each particle a compass needle urging me eastward. The wind returns, carrying the scent of crushed time, impossible in this latitude, and with it a sound like distant chanting slowed to glacier tempo. The organon holds the note. Carter loads a rifle shell, though I doubt bullets influence ideologies. He squares his jaw. You mean to follow them? Yes. Then I'm your escort. I shake my head. You're the new metronome. Keep the rationalists tethered. If anyone tries to rewrite their heartbeat, lend them yours. He starts to protest. I place the rosary in his hand. The beads have cooled but still thrum with a subbeat. He understands and clasps it like a relay baton. Das pockets the femur. It might want you to carry this, he says. I think it already has a femur, I reply. Keep it safe. If I'm wrong about the archive's intent, you'll need another contradiction. I leave before argument can sprout. Across the plateau, the newly anointed pilgrims march shoulder to shoulder, eyes half-lidded. Their footprints align in harmonic spacing, as if choreographed by an unseen cartographer. I fall in behind them, last penitent in a procession that doesn't know it's a church. The desert night bleeds in, widening every gap between stars until constellations feel like letters torn from a page. Somewhere ahead, the sinkhole, the spiral throat, the music under sand waiting for its soloist. Behind me, the drill looses a final groan and shuts down, duty spent. My feet find the 7-point cadence without effort, yet I count offbeat in my head to keep myself slightly out of tune. The archive may compose listeners, but even a choir needs a note of dissonance to stay human. The horizon swallows the last sodium lamp from camp. In its absence, I hear a familiar voice, Mars, gentle as late-night static. Good, a hymn loves a pause. I keep walking toward the pause. Somewhere beyond, the sand is drafting its next stanza, and I intend to read it from the inside out. The march stretches through a night without wind, a night so still the constellations feel like holes pricked in a velvet drumhead rather than distant suns. Around me, the pilgrims glide at perfect 7-count intervals, souls kissing sand with the deliberateness of calligraphy strokes. I shadow them a step behind, whispering missed beats under my breath, tiny fractures in the meter to guard the edge of my will. Each skipped beat is a splinter of privacy the archive cannot annotate. Hours pass. My tongue tastes of quartz dust and unsaid scripture. Somewhere in that blur, the desert floor transitions from loose grains to a skin of fused silica, clear and cool as river ice. The change is abrupt, as if someone switched scenery while the audience blinked. Beneath the transparent crust glide faint silver shapes, recording coils perhaps, or root-like veins drawing language downward. I cannot tell if they were always there or grew in the instant we arrived. Ahead, the procession slows. A mouth in the ground yawns. the same spiral sinkhole that sealed itself days ago, now wider, its slope terraced like an amphitheater. Quartz facets line each step and glow with a low internal lantern light, pale lavender. No lamps, no wiring. The archive has begun lighting its own sanctuary. One by one, the pilgrims descend. None stumble, though the surface offers little traction. I join them, palms grazing the stone for balance. It sings with sub-audible vowels that resonate along my ulna. Every earlier attempt to label this sensation feels childish now. This is not vibration. It is breathing in a grammar older than air. We spiral down perhaps 6 stories until the ramp meets a cavern the size of a basilica. The ceiling is invisible, lost in darkness that nonetheless feels luminous, the way imagination glows behind closed eyelids. Columns of condensed sound, visible sculpted pressure, rise from the floor, fluted like stalagmites. They vibrate gently, giving shape to harmonies my ears convert into after-images, blue for low pitches, amber for high. When my shoulder brushes one, it flexes like warm glass and releases a chord that chills my spine. At the nave's center stands the pressure suit we unearthed. Erect now, empty helmet tilted upward as if awaiting benediction. Its chest plate has split, ribs parted like petals. Inside that cavity, a quartz organ shifts in brightness. With every breath, the gathered crowd exhales. Near the left hip plate, I spot the polished femur Das kept behind. Somehow it migrated here, perfectly socketed among the crystals. My midnight carving gleams along its spiral, no longer groove but vein, filled with molten light. Dr. Kazuo Ma steps from behind the suit, living flesh where death certificate once swore otherwise. He wears a desert jumpsuit stained at the cuffs, eyes wide with sleepless mercy. The camp registry tattoo on his wrist has inverted. Black digits turn negative white, as if the archive printed his identity on film and held it to the sun. "Caleb," he says, voice softer than memory yet louder than silence, "we are overdue for communion." Instinct drags my hand to the crucifix. The silver is hot enough to sting. "You died. Tokyo Emergency logged the EKG." He smiles, apologetic. Cardiac stillness and termination are twin ideas separated only by expectation. He gestures around. Expectation holds no leverage here. Pilgrims gather in concentric rings, their faces slack but peaceful, like congregants moments before a hymn begins. Ma raises both hands. Columns of sound rise in pitch until words detach from meaning and float as vowel only. With each ascent, the cave's walls pixelate, revealing perforations that lead into darkness, as though the entire chamber is nothing but fine parchment stretched over a deeper void. Ma studies me with something between pride and caution. "Listener," he says, using the archive's title for clergy, "you kept contradiction alive. That is a rarer virtue than faith." Behind my ribs, my heart stammers off tempo. I force it back into syncopation. "You called me here. Show me the purpose or let me go." "Purpose is too narrow," he replies. "Think of this place as schema correction. Humanity's neural web carries corrupted indices of awe. The archive refreshes those indices so reverence can resume growth. By rewriting minds? By completing them." His head tilts, listening. "The sand claims you already sense the gap." Images flash. The miner's chapel where my father knelt, roof shaking before the collapse. The Somali child who never woke from borrowed demons. My Bible page smoking in a tin urn. Gaps, yes. Every creed I clutched tore on first contact with real suffering. Yet those gaps kept me human. Room for doubt, space to weep. Ma extends his right hand. Between thumb and forefinger hovers a graphite-grey glyph, three-dimensional, spinning like a tiny drill bit bored through reality. It sheds flecks of itself that evaporate mid-air. "Accept it," he says, "and the fracture inside you will knit with knowledge. You'll never pray unanswered again because you'll be part of the response." My knees soften under the weight of want. A life without silence from heaven? The offer tastes of home baked from hunger, But want is not consent. I recall Carter's steady pulse sync to my own, Das's shaking hands as he shielded the femur. They trusted me to remain off-tempo so their hearts could keep true human syncopation. If I dissolve into chord, who conducts their survival? I take the offered glyph, but between us I close fist instead of palm up. Quartz edges bite skin. The archive's note enters me, and I feel its shape yearning to expand, to re-index every neuron. I hold my breath, counting wrong numbers, forging a cage from doubt. "You still resist?" Ma asks, sorrow and astonishment mingled. "Not resist," I say. "Translate." I press the glyph against the column nearest me. It sinks like seed into soil. The entire structure shivers, its pitch modulating from perfect fifth to unresolved ninth, beautifully imperfect. Pilgrims gasp, some clasp ears. Ma staggers as a feedback loop lances through him. I step toward the pressure suit's open chest. The quartz organ surges, brightening with alarm. I think of Jude's missing page, my confession carved on a drill deck, every skipped beat I ever counted. Contradiction is not error. It is margin, the blank where new text can grow. I place my scorched crucifix inside the cavity, wedging it between crystals. Silver meets silica with a crack that sounds like sheet ice splitting. A jagged hush rolls outward. For a span of seconds, the entire cathedral hangs undecided. Then the note fractures, splitting into countless microtones, no longer monologue but polyphony. The pilgrims awaken. Some weep, clutching chests that rediscover asymmetry. Others back away, faces half-lit by sputtering quartz as veins of light fizz out. Columns of sound lose coherence and collapse into dust that drifts upward, back toward unseen ceilings. Ma kneels, fingers digging into glassy floor. His eyes swim with starlight and bewildered gratitude. "You risked it all for dissonance." "Dissonance is invitation," I whisper. "God Archive, or whichever name owns this hall, real dialogue needs disagreement." The pressure suit buckles inward. Shards leap free, tinkling like bells dropped in water. A sigh, gentle, massive, moves through the chamber, and for a breath I feel it consider my argument. Then the suit splits completely, shell becoming petals that wither to sand. The femur at its hip, spiral etched and glowing, cracks in two. Light bleeds out and paints the sand dusky rose. Above, pinprick stars reappear through the ceiling parchment, closer now. They radiate in new intervals, some too irregular to map. The archive, confronted with a discordant heartbeat, is rewriting its own score. Pilgrims scatter toward the ramp, some helping others limp, all blinking like newborns surprised by air. I guide a dazed engineer named Silver, whose palms bleed from gripping invisible handrails. We reach the slope. Ma watches from the cavern's center, kneeling amid settling dust. He is smiling, though tears streak his cheeks. "Come with us," I call. He shakes his head. "The listener must stay until the verse completes, or the measure falters. You spoke of purpose as correction, but correction never ends. Come." He closes his eyes, listening to a frequency I cannot hear. When he speaks, his voice is thready but firm. Someone must archive the archive. Then the floor beneath him liquefies into fine silver sand, and he sinks gently as though lowered by unseen hands. The dust seals over, smooth as a tide-swept beach. I carry Silver up the ramp. At the rim, dawn greets us. First light, true light, not the lavender glow of quartz. The desert spreads wide, dunes reshaped overnight into shoals of cinnamon and violet. Between them glimmer new channels where moisture beads, hinting at water drawn upward by unknown mechanics. The sky smells of petrichor. Behind us, the spiral mouth contracts. It does not vanish, but closes to a narrow aperture, a whistle hole, in the earth. From that aperture rises a continuous breath note, cracked, unresolved, exactly wrong enough to be alive. Back at what remains of camp, survivors tend to one another amid toppled towers and quiet machinery. The organon lies in shards, tubes frosted with condensation like thawing glassware. A few broken reeds still whistle when the breeze threads them, stray notes that drift up like birds startled from roost. The rationalists have abandoned evacuation plans. Instead, they rig comms arrays to capture the new atmospheric tones, arguing about whether moisture content or belief index better predicts pitch. Dr. Das hugs me without asking permission, stethoscope thumping my ribs in relief, then presses 2 vials of anticoagulant into my hand. Insurance against whatever comes next. Carter returns my rosary, beads scarred from dancing with seismic rhythms. We bury 3 who didn't wake from the spiral, simple cairns of drill core stone, each marked with an untuned quartz shard that sings when the sunset wind crosses it. During the brief ceremony, I noticed the dunes beyond the graves holding steady for once, no longer curling into sigils but resting, as if fatigue is also geological. The camp mess reopens on half rations. Tomato paste tastes like feast when shared beneath a half-built canopy that still carries scorch marks from last night's power surge. We talk about rebuilding the hydroponics bags, about coaxing barley from sand now streaked with improbable moisture veins. No one speaks of leaving. When night falls, I stand at the perimeter wire, where floodlights used to burn, their housings now dark and rust-flecked like empty sconces. The desert is quiet but not mute. Small gusts skate across newborn moisture, carrying a note that warbles, seeking harmony. Somewhere far off, a lone coil of the organon catches that breeze and answers with a shy minor third, 2 sounds feeling for equilibrium. I breathe in, deliberately miscount the rise and fall of my chest, and answer with a crooked psalm, unfinished but earnest. For the first time since childhood, doubt and faith share the same breath. The archive listens. Instead of closing round the words, it pauses, patient, curious, willing at last to hear what silence does between phrases. The conversation, I realize, has only just begun.